I don't care what Kamala Harris says about price controls, because price controls are one of the most devastating ways that you can annihilate an economy. So I don't think that'll ever go through. I think that if Kamala said, we're going to do price controls, there would be 50 million people around here that would go, absolutely not. This is insane. Go out there and apologize and say you're not doing that shit. If Donald Trump says he's going to do 20% tariffs, you have to fall in line or he's going to annihilate your career. Right? I think that's the difference. So
if you enjoy content like this, then make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It really does help me out a ton. Let's get back to the video. The woke streamer Destiny is once again getting embarrassed on a live debate panel, obviously, as the election is starting to ramp up, and tomorrow is the actual election. Who knows how long it's going to take until we actually know who wins the election. But as things are ramping up, everybody is debating. Everybody is going at each other right now. It's the heat of, it's the height of this very heated election. And Destiny is hopping on these debates and just getting embarrassed over and over again. Let's get into this clip here with this Based MAGA guy, Tom Wheelwright. I've never even heard of this guy. Let me know in the comments if you've heard of him, but I've never actually even heard of him. And Destiny gets absolutely demolished by him because it's not very hard to demolish Destiny, to be honest with you. His ideas are pretty stupid. Anyway, let's get into this clip here of Destiny getting absolutely demolished in this live debate.
Investment incentive so that, for example, I mean, take Musk and Teslas, okay? Not a lot of people to make a Tesla. It's all robotics, right? And so it's innovation, it's technology. So what you want to see is, rather than having it cheap because it's cheap labor and they're in sweatshops in Vietnam and Indonesia, you want it cheap because the technology's good. That's what I would like to see. I would like to see that's why it becomes cheap, not because of cheap labor.
Sure, but I mean, at the end of the day, these are all market forces competing with each other, right? Like, at some point, machines are going to outperform humans. It just depends on how low the wages can be. But I mean, like there's weird moral values we put on that too. Like, we say, like, well, we don't want there to be sweatshops in other countries. Well, what if you take away the sweatshops and then they go to like subsistence farming, right? Like, sweatshops aren't great in the U.S., of course, and in a lot of countries, sure, but it might be like a country's path towards industrialization and middle-class wages. Eventually, like, there are roads and steps, and the country is free to negotiate as well, right? It's just one thing that I noticed when we talk about a lot of like tax and econ policy is that for some reason, other countries are doing things that somehow are so good for them and they're screwing us over. But then if we were to do those things, they become bad for us. And it makes me wonder, like, I think that deportation and tariffs, these are both great examples of this. People will say, in one breath, they'll say Mexico has this unfair advantage because they have so much cheap labor. They're killing us in manufacturing. We can't allow this to happen. And then in the next breath, they'll say, we need to deport all these guys back to Mexico. And it's like, well, hold on. If they're killing us in manufacturing because of all their workers, why don't we just let them fucking come up here and then make it in the U.S.? Like, wouldn't that be better? Like, if we really think that that's like killing us, why not just like eat all their workers and have them come up here and give them citizenship and make it here, right? Wouldn't that be better?
I mean, that's actually a supply side argument.
Yeah. So I guess when I look at like the people that support like the Trump tariffs are just,
if you enjoy content like this, then make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It really does help me out a ton. Let's get back to the video.
They're so bad. And like, if you want to subsidize your economy and you want to make things cheap as hell, and you want to do that to the detriment of your own economy, because I think in a lot of ways subsidies can be good and subsidies can be really bad. I think we both agree that there are good subsidies, bad subsidies. If you want to subsidize the craziest stuff out of your economy and then we get to import that, I mean, we're just like gaining off of your crazy tax planning. And again, there's pros and cons to everything, but man, a 20% tariff across the board, that would just, like, you agree, that would be like devastating to the U.S. economy, right? Like, that would be more devastating than any $6,000 child tax credit or whatever, right?
Well, certainly more devastating than $6,000 child tax credit, baby tax credit. You know what? What's interesting is Biden, the one thing that he only kept one thing of Trump's, and that was tariffs. The only thing he kept. I just find that interesting. Well, I'm not going to make comment on it, but he did. He kept.
I'll make a comment on it. The difficulty, I think, when it comes to tariffs is it's very easy for me to tariff somebody. I can look at somebody and go, 20% tariff, screw you. But obviously, they're going to retaliate, right? Okay, well, fine, 20% tariff, screw you. To levy a tariff is easy, but to bring it down, well, now I have to negotiate some kind of deal, because I can't just remove my tariff on you while you've tariffed me, because now I'm getting screwed, right? So I think it's one of the reasons why the tariff stayed around is because we're already engaged in kind of an awkward trade war thing going on with China, geopolitically with Taiwan, economically, and trade-wise with chip manufacturing and everything. It's easy to levy a tariff. It's hard to take it down. So I'm not going to give Biden the same penalty for maintaining a tariff that Donald Trump laid on somebody, right? And I think that like the CHIPS Act was better for bringing manufacturing here for semiconductor manufacturing than even just the tariffs, from Trump himself.
I totally agree with that. I have another question for you. So Harris has proposed price controls.
Yeah, I was literally about
Price controls
to
on
interrupt
groceries, price controls on rent, lots of different price controls. Historically, that has not played well in other countries. What makes you think, or what makes even the Democrats think, that that's going to work here when it hasn't worked other places?
This is my favorite thing about
The reality is, it doesn't, nothing that Kamala Harris says does she actually mean that she's going to do. She's only saying things that sound good. And to be fair, Donald Trump is doing the same thing, right? Donald Trump is saying, I want to abolish income tax. Like, okay, buddy, that's not going to happen. We all know it's not going to happen. It would be great. I would absolutely love it. That'd be amazing. Taxation is theft, and we're sending all that over to the Middle East and to all these wars that we have nothing to do with anyway. So that'd be amazing if you did that. We all know it's not going to happen. Same thing as student loan debt relief or all this stuff. Even the 20% tariff thing, like it's not going to happen. I mean, there's an off chance that one could happen. But like the Kamala Harris saying that she is going to, do all that, like none of this is going to happen. Like ultimately, she's making false promises because it sounds great, and we all know that. So to stop price gouging by putting limits on certain on prices, I mean, obviously that would be horrible for the economy. Obviously that'd be a horrible decision, but it sounds great to all Kamala Harris voters because they're all broke and they don't make any money. Like they don't understand how an economy works. So of course it sounds great to them. Like, oh, you're going to put limit on how much I have to pay for groceries? That's amazing. Now I get to, my food stamps get to go further than they did before. Like, of course it sounds good to her idiot supporters, but of course it would never actually happen. It's the same thing. That's why they said student loan debt relief, because they're targeting poor people, like just being transparent. Like Kamala Harris voters are poor people most of the time. So that's why she's saying stuff like that. It's obviously never going to actually happen, though. And if you disagree, let me know in the comments.
I don't care what Kamala Harris says about price controls, because price controls are one of the most devastating ways that you can annihilate an economy. So I don't think that'll ever go through. I think that if Kamala said, we're going to do price controls, there would be 50 million people around her that would go, absolutely not. This is insane. Go out there and apologize and say you're not doing that shit. If Donald Trump says he's going to do 20% tariffs, you have to fall in line or he's going to annihilate your career. Right. I think that's the difference. So there are some things, we not to revisit it, but like the concept of unrealized capital gains taxes and wealth taxes, for a large number of reasons, these are almost inconceivably difficult to levy. It's how do you evaluate? It's very, very difficult. I'm not even really concerned about it. I just don't think that an unrealized capital gains tax is ever coming because of how difficult it would be to levy and how much pushback she would get because the Democratic Party is such a white tent party. Look at what happened to Biden when he had a disastrous debate performance. The leftist media bullied him. He got bullied internally, and then people internally bullied him externally to make him leave.
Well, and you could say the same thing about Trump's proposal to not tax Social Security. It's frankly because that money actually goes back into the Social Security fund. The income tax on Social Security goes into the Social Security fund, and that would be untenable to pull that money out. So that's an example of, and Congress has to pass that. So I would say, a lot of these, Trump has made. I think some of Trump's tax proposals are not logical.
And quite
the scary
frankly,
thing about some of Trump's stuff is that he can do a lot of it by executive action, which is the scary thing.
He can taxes, tariffs, yes, taxes no.
Taxes probably not, but the tariffs yes, and the tariffs are one of the
no.
Tariffs are one of the scariest things that he's talking about, though, right?
Tariffs, yes. Tariffs, yes.
Destiny,
Now,
you're talking
do you think that an executive action like tariffs is, I suspect you do, is particularly worse than just unconstitutionally just wiping out student loan debt?
No, I think unconstitutionally wiping out student loan debt would be atrocious.
Which is what Biden attempted several times.
No, I don't think so. I disagree.
He did. He was shut down by the courts.
Sure. So what you just said defeated the argument that you made, right? So the Constitution is what powers the legislature, the courts, and the executive. Biden, his statutory interpretation of the education bill that said that in times a president can forgive certain types of debt or whatever, he attempted the executive, their interpretation was, well, I can forgive this debt, and he tried it, and the Supreme Court said, we disagree with that interpretation, you can't, and then he said, oh, okay. I'll look and see what else I can do. I don't think that's violating the Constitution. The executive tried something that they thought that they had the statutory construction to do, and the court said, no, you don't have it.
He actually said, I know I know they're going to shut us down because I know this is not legal. I'm going to do it anyway because maybe I'll get away with it.
I don't know if that's exactly what he said.
Not exactly, but it's basically anyway. I'm just curious. But you're right. You're right. You and I agree on one thing, and that is that anytime we can have balancing powers is a good thing. Okay?
Sure, but if I was worried about stuff like that, not to be a one-trick pony, but I'd be way more worried about like Donald Trump trying to remain in office after he lost the election, because that was the thing they were trying to do unconstitutionally. They were advocating for breaking a law, the ECA under Pence, and Eastman himself said that not only can we break this law, there will be no checks and balances because the Supreme Court won't touch this because they'll invoke the political questions doctrine and they won't get involved. So we can just do this. That's arguably above the Constitution or above the court and eliminating checks and balances. So
arguably, so you have it on both sides, which doesn't make either one right.
Well, hold on. That's not on both sides. It's absolutely what they tried to do on the Trump side, unequivocally, and they said as much. I don't believe Biden said, I'm going to go above the Constitution and I'm going to defy the Supreme Court and do all these things. Trump's side did say that.
In Destiny, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you're essentially saying price controls, bad idea, even unrealized capital gains, probably not going to happen. But you're saying that probably won't happen, whereas you're saying that Trump, if he gets elected, he can almost be a mob boss, do tariffs without any checks and balances. And he's way more likely to do that.
Yeah,
and
I don't want to come off as like overly political, but like Trump, I'm going to sound weird. Trump operates like an authoritarian insofar as he wants to centralize a lot of power in the executive, not really the executive.
Oh my God, dude! How does Destiny keep saying this when it makes no sense? How? In what way? Just please ask him. Please ask him. In what way does Donald Trump want to centralize power to the executive branch? I don't understand. There is nothing that Donald Trump has ever said or done. In fact, he's done the opposite with the Roe v. Wade thing, overturning Roe v. Wade. I mean, obviously, Donald Trump didn't do that himself, but the Supreme Court justices that he appointed overturned Roe v. Wade and left it up to the states to decide. That's the opposite of centralizing power to the executive branch. If he wanted to be an authoritarian and he wanted to do what his voter base actually wanted to do, he would just try to get the abortion topic to be controlled by the executive branch and just ban abortion. And then his supporters would love that. But Donald Trump has said over and over and over again, I mean, he can't do anything else. And obviously there's nothing that he can do to convince someone like Destiny. But it's just wild to me that someone like this is just allowed to just lie constantly. And it's funny how his logic doesn't check out. You know, he's saying Kamala Harris is saying all these ridiculous things. Joe Biden said all these ridiculous things, price control, you know, student loan forgiveness, all this stuff. And Destiny's like, oh yeah, but they're just silly. You know, they're never going to actually do that. They're just saying that to get elected. And then Donald Trump says things and he's like, oh my goodness, I can't believe he said this authoritarian fascist Hitler type guy. He's going to overthrow democracy because he wants to abolish income tax and place 20% tariffs. It's like, are you serious, dude? Like, obviously politicians say things to get elected. And we know this. But if you're going to say that about Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, at least be consistent and also acknowledge that Donald Trump is probably doing the same thing. And he's probably not going to be able to accomplish these things either. I don't understand how Donald Trump operates as an authoritarian. If he wanted to operate as an authoritarian, he could have not left office whenever he lost the last election. He could have just tried to stay there by force. And he didn't do that. He didn't at all.
The presidency. So Donald Trump will outfit himself with a lot of people that are willing to go really far with the things that he wants to do in terms of executive control. And he's got a court that's very favorable to him right now. So I'm worried about the types of things that Trump could do, because if you go against Trump, Trump will try to destroy your career. That's what he does, right? He attacks everybody that opposes him in the party. Whereas in the Democratic Party, you kind of have to play ball more with everybody in the party because it's a wider tent and you got a wider constituency, and the party is just a little bit more live. Where if today Kamala Harris said, "Screw the Democrat Party, I'm walking away," you know, Pelosi and everybody else were like, "Okay, I guess we're going to throw somebody else up in here." If Donald Trump said, "Screw the Republican Party, I'm running as an independent," the Republican Party loses 75% of their constituents. It's like so that's a lot scarier to me. I feel like the potential for executive power overreach and abuse is a lot higher with Trump. That's my feeling.
Go ahead, Caleb.
Well, I mean, this comes down to the big debate around Trump. Like, I guess you said you didn't want to get super political, but I feel like it's bleeding into what is the reason you hate Trump so much, and can you boil that thesis down? Because we're talking about, I feel like we're talking and agree a lot on the same policies, but like you obviously hate Donald Trump. A lot of the people that agree with you around the tax side are voting Republican. So I just wonder what the disconnect is. And then obviously January 6th is like a huge talking point.
Yeah,
but then if you take a step back, like he was president for four years, and I don't understand why people think like it's just gonna be game over if he becomes president again. And and again, I know that this is not the first time you've heard that question, but that's just it seems like the liberals, their only talking point, it seems like Kamala's only talking point is Trump, horrible. And it seems it's just like, that's like their only talking point. And it almost seems exhausting. So I guess that's just feedback on like and it might be working. I mean, I actually do believe that Trump lost the election because of Trump, not because of Biden. And so I like, it's one of those things where it's like, I can see both sides. He's an exhausting person, but I also, I'm not as afraid as that he's going to like take over and like stay in office. Like those are the kind of things that maybe.
I don't know why you would be afraid. It's destiny, and these Democrats are just fear mongering. There's no reason to be afraid of something like that happening. We've already had 4 years of Trump, and he didn't try to do that. So it just blows my mind that they're able to just lie like this. But I'm glad that there was some pushback on destiny here from Tom Wheelwright, and just explaining to him calmly how ridiculous he sounds. Let me know in the comments though what you guys think about this Destiny appearance on this podcast. I've never heard of it before, but it was cool to see Destiny once again get embarrassed. This time not in some crazy heated debate, but there was obvious pushback and just Destiny making himself seem ridiculous more than anything. Let me know in the comments though what you think about this Destiny versus this Based MAGA guy, podcast host. I don't even know who he is. I think he's a CPA. Let me know in the comments though what you think about this Destiny appearance on this podcast.